welcome to our first ever webinar. I'm Dr. Sue Huggett, I'm the Commercial Manager for Beaphar in the UK, and I am our resident in-house worm expert. My PhD was in drug resistance of the parasitic worms of domestic animals in the UK. Georgina, would you like to introduce yourself?
Thank you, Sue. Hi, I'm Georgina. I'm a registered veterinary nurse and I've got nearly 11 years experience. My job role at Beaphar is Technical Support Executive, so I'm mainly responsible for training and new product development.
Perfect, thank you. Today we're going to be talking about worms, specifically parasitic worms in the gastrointestinal tract of dogs and cats.
Jargon!
You may have heard a voice off camera there shouting jargon at us. We have a lady in the room with us to make sure that Georgina and I don't stray into techno babble, and that anything that we say that is not understandable, we will endeavour to come back and correct. So gastrointestinal tract is basically the gut and the intestine below the gut. So we're talking about the worms that live within stomachs and intestines of our pets. Thanks for everybody that has already sent us in questions. We will do our best to answer your questions today, time permitting. And if people watching want to send us in further questions as the session is proceeding, then please do send those in via the comments section. We will do our best to answer your questions. If we run out of time, then we will answer all of the questions that we haven't covered off today on tomorrow's feed. So we hope to get back to you that way. So without further ado, I'm going to kick off today, and I'm going to start with a question that, well, it's not really a question, to be honest. It's a comment as much as everything, and it's something that very commonly comes into the office. So we've gathered questions from our customer services department, as well as directly from the Facebook feed for today's session. And the question that I'm starting with is, I've never seen worms. My dog looks fine. I don't need to worm, right? Now, that's a very common misconception, so I thought it was a good way to get the whole thing rolling today. And essentially, no, it's not right. Worm eggs are everywhere. They're everywhere in the environment. And I'm going to take you back quite a long time to when I was at university. And when I was studying parasitology at university.
Jargon!
Parasitology, the science of parasites. We walked down to the village green and we collected soil samples from the village green, and we went back to the laboratory to look and see what we'd found within our soil samples, and they were teeming with Toxocara eggs.
Jargon!
Toxocara is the main roundworm that you find in cats and dogs in the UK. So on the local village green, which was completely open to children to play, it was absolutely teeming with Toxocara eggs. So, the standard recommendation or good practice for treating dogs and cats in the UK is to worm 4 times a year. It won't kill every worm, but it will keep on top of a worm burden and stop that production of worm eggs getting to a significant level. So that's why we recommend to people that they should treat their dogs once every 3 to 4 months in order to keep on top of the problem. And I'm guessing, Georgina, you would have come across that in practice quite regularly as well, that people don't realise that they need to be treating their dogs on a regular basis.
Yeah, exactly. As Sue has explained, people quite commonly, a misconception is that they don't, because they haven't seen worms, they assume their animal, their cat or the dog hasn't got worms, but it's not the case. So it's really important to, every 3 months, to make sure you're worming your cat or your dog with a routine broad spectrum wormer.
Yeah, and I think it's quite an unpleasant thought, really, that your beloved pet that's cuddling up on the sofa with you in the evening actually might be full of these nasty wriggly parasites. So just from the basis of that, I think everybody now will probably want to rush out and buy a wormer, worm their dog this evening, because it's not a nice thought, is it?
It's not, and I've got 3 dogs at home, so actually it's really important that if you have got a multi-pet household, that you're worming all of your cats and dogs at the same time to avoid one animal reinfesting the other one.
Yeah, it's important stuff. So yeah, our recommendation is that for all adult dogs, please do worm your dogs 4 times a year. It's so easy to do nowadays, there's really no reason why you shouldn't do it, and they'll feel better for it, and the environment will have less eggs going into it to be worried about. So Georgina, have you got a question that's come in from
Yes, I've got quite an interesting question actually from a lady asking whether she can handle worm clear tablets because she's pregnant. So the active ingredients that are in Beaphar Worm clear tablets, they're not actually absorbed through our skin. So there are no known contraindications to be able to handle the tablets when you're pregnant or breastfeeding. However, that said, as a precaution, my personal recommendation is to always wear gloves if you're handling any medicinal product, and especially if you are pregnant or breastfeeding, just as a precaution, it's worth to wear gloves. On that note as well, Beaphar Worm Clear cannot be given to pregnant cats and dogs. It's not licensed to be used in that method, meaning that we don't have the necessary studies to make sure that it's safe enough for that purpose. However, it is safe to be used in cats and dogs that are nursing or lactating. Have you got anything you'd like to add on that note, Sue?
Only to say, generally speaking, that we don't necessarily recommend worming dogs or cats when they're pregnant in any case. It's actually very difficult to kill all of the worms in an adult animal during pregnancy. So it's actually more efficient, if that's the right way of saying it. You're actually going to have a better effect by treating 2 weeks after birth than you actually are during the course of the pregnancy. So I think it means it doesn't really matter. You shouldn't be too hung up about worming the animal while it's pregnant anyway.
And on Sue's note, always making sure that you're worming both the mother and her kittens or her puppies. It's important to worm them all as a group.
Yeah, excellent. Okay, I've got another question. We're on dogs at the moment, but hang in there if you're a cat owner, because we do have some cat questions coming up. This is a nice one. I hope you're not having your dinner at the moment. My dog was sick last time I wormed him. That doesn't seem right. Do I need to retreat him? And should I choose a different brand of wormer? Unfortunately, it's actually quite common for dogs to be sick after worming. Yes. There's quite a lot of different reasons as to why that might be the case. So a big dog, you give, I'm sure everybody knows this already, but you need to weigh your pet before you decide how many worming tablets you need to give him or her.
Definitely.
And if you have a big dog or a heavy dog, then you would need obviously to give more tablets. And if you give a lot of tablets, there does seem to be an effect of just those tablets rattling around in the stomach that sometimes causes them to vomit quite quickly, soon after being treated. So that's one possibility. Another possibility is that actually there were quite a lot of worms there to start with.
Yeah.
And the treatment starts to take effect. The worms come loose from their attachment on the gut wall. They're wriggling around, and that irritation causes the animal to be sick. And there is the slight possibility that your dog is sensitive to an active ingredient in a particular wormer. So there is a possibility that it is a sort of adverse reaction, if you like, to the wormer itself, but that is relatively rare. On the topic of whether you need to retreat, has the thing worked? Do you need to do it again? If your dog is sick within the hour of you treating it, I would say that you probably need to consider treating again. Would you agree with that?
To be honest, I'd probably say up to 4 hours, because the stomach can take between an hour to 4 hours to empty completely. So quite possibly if a dog's had a big meal, that tablet's not going to be broken down and absorbed as quickly as a dog that's potentially only had a very small amount of food. So there's no right or wrong answer always. I think it's going to depend on how sick your dog's been and also how frequently it's eaten. But if you're in any doubt, you can always call us directly and speak to the customer services team, and I'm always on hand as well. Alternatively, call your vets. Just to touch on Sue's comment about adverse reactions, if your dog is sick at all or has any diarrhea following any medication, it's always important to contact the manufacturer. So if it's a Beaphar product, always call us as soon as you can, because we are legally obliged to report that as a suspected adverse reaction. And that's really important for keeping both yourself and your pet safe.
Perfect. Okay, the other part of the question was, should I choose a different brand next time? You could, and there's no problem with that. The only thing I would say there is just be very careful about which particular product you choose. Just because a product is a different brand doesn't necessarily mean it has different active ingredients in it, and there are a number of brands that have very similar active ingredients, so you do need to read the label quite carefully. To be honest, quite often you can treat the same dog with the same product on a different occasion and have no problem at all.
Yeah.
But if you're worried, then perfectly understandable that you would want to try and use another product. By all means, as Georgina has already suggested, that you could always phone us first and we can talk you through the process if you're at all worried about it, so no problem with that.
Yeah, I would agree.
So, have you got another question?
Yes, I've got another dog-related question, but I think it's quite interesting. One of our clients has asked, our Beaphar Worming syrup, it's chocolate flavoured, and they've actually asked whether it contains chocolate. So I can assure you it doesn't, and it also doesn't contain theobromide, which is the toxic part of chocolate, the part of the chocolate that's toxic to dogs.
Yeah.
So it's basically a really delicious flavouring to make it really palatable for cats and dogs and kittens and puppies, to make it easier for you to give it to them. So rest assured there is no chocolate in our worming syrup.
Perfect. Okay, for all those cat people out there who've been patiently waiting for a cat question, the one I have here is, I've always been told that cats don't need worming regularly like dogs do. I've never suspected that my cat has worms, and they don't harm people like dog worms do anyway, do they? Look how horrified we are. Oh dear, you have been misled, dear customer. Cats get worms in exactly the same way as dogs do. It's very difficult for any animal that's out and about in the environment to avoid worm eggs, as we said before. They're everywhere. So cats do get worms. It is a slightly different worm to the dog worm. They're related, but they're not exactly the same worm. And they do infect people too. Now, cats have a habit of burying what they've produced, which means that your football playing son may not come home from the park with cat poo on his football boots. However, they do have a tendency sometimes to dig in sandpits or in the neighbour's vegetable garden. And if they're leaving Toxocara eggs in the neighbour's vegetable garden, that's not an ideal scenario, because worm eggs can infect people and they can go on to cause really quite unpleasant symptoms, particularly in children. So we recommend regular worming of cats in exactly the same way as dogs. Again, is that something you would have come across in practice?
Yeah, as Sue mentioned, Toxocara eggs are roundworm eggs, which can cause problems to people as well. And even cats that don't go outside, they are still at risk of worms. It's a much lower risk, by all means, but we can still bring those worm eggs in on our shoes, and also if we've got dogs that are coming in and out, there's another potential exposure to our cats. So I do genuinely feel like this is my mantra at the moment, but prevention is always better than a cure. I don't think I've got anything else on that note. You've covered everything
perfect.
for me.
Okay, what else have you got?
Can I give my large cat a dog worming tablet? And the answer is no. It seems like a logical thing to do, but actually they contain different strengths of the active ingredients. And to make sure that they're safe, they've also gone through different trials. So our cat tablets will have only been tested in cats, and our dog wormer actually contains an extra added ingredient. So if you were to give your cat a dog worming tablet, you would risk potentially overdosing your cat and making them quite poorly. So it's definitely not something that we would ever recommend.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a reason why the product is specifically sold for a dog or a cat, and if that's what's on the label, then that's what's been proven to be safe. So to keep your pet safe, it is absolutely essential to buy the right product for the right pet. We would always recommend that. Okay, what have I got coming up? Well, actually, on a similar vein, I've been asked a question about one of our specific products, which is something called multi-wormer for cats. So this customer has bought multi-wormer for cats and come back to us saying when they got home, they found there were 2 types of tablets in the pack. The recommendations for this product are that you treat with one colour first, and then a second colour, and then a third colour. So basically the customer's really quite confused about the whole thing and saying, well, does it matter if I do them in a different order? What's going on here? So just a bit of explanation about that really. Multi-wormer cat contains 2 different coloured tablets, and the 2 different coloured tablets contain completely different active ingredients. So there are twice as many pink tablets as there are fawn tablets in a pack. And the reason for that is that the pink tablets, which are for treating roundworm, need to be given on 2 separate occasions to get the best result. And you need to give those 2 weeks apart. The fawn coloured tablets are for treating tapeworm, which is a different type of worm and needs a different type of ingredient to kill it. And you can give that at any point, so long as there is a week between giving the pink tablet for the roundworm and a week later or a week before you give the fawn tablet for the tapeworm. So it's quite complicated. The reason we give the recommendation on the pack that we do, which is to give pink roundworm tablets today, fawn tablets in 7 days' time, and the pink tablets again 7 days later, is that gives you the shortest period that you can get the whole job done safely. You've got your pink tablets 2 weeks apart, and you've got your fawn tablets a week apart from your pink tablets. That way you kill all of the worms in the safest possible way and the most efficient way with that product. That does sound like quite a lot of hassle. I think it's fair to say.
It does, yes.
And we do have alternative products nowadays that you can use in one treatment. So Worm Clear can be given just today and the whole job is done. Or if your cat really doesn't like tablets, and we all know that some cats really do object to being given tablets, we do have a worming granule that you can actually mix into the food. And that again you can do fairly quickly and easily. So hopefully that explains that particular mystery.
Yes, and that actually leads quite nicely onto my next question actually, which is about crushing worm clear tablets and putting them in food. So this is absolutely fine to do, and it sort of leads on with the worming granules. The only issue is if they're in the food, you have to make sure that your cat or dog eats the entire amount of food that you've mixed it with. What you don't want to happen is they eat half and then they potentially only had half of the dosage, so it's not going to be as effective.
Sure.
So especially with the cat worming granules, make sure you put it with the smallest amount of food so your cat hasn't got to eat too much, but also enough that it's not unpalatable for them. And with the worm clear tablets, if you do feel you need to put it in food, preferably for me, for my dogs, one of them is really fussy, so I normally have to cut off a piece of cheese and pop it in there to disguise it, just so I know that he's definitely had all of it. But otherwise crush it and again mix it with the smallest amount that you possibly can, so you haven't got to feed them an entire meal.
Yeah. Perfect. Okay, my next question is a much more generalist one, and it's more about our marketing actually and what we put on our packaging. My question is that for Beaphar Worm Clear, we market it as a vet strength wormer. And the question from the customer is it the same as the ones from the vet, or is this just marketing? Good question. Worm Clear is what we term a generic product, which basically means that it's a copy of a proprietary brand that's been sold through vets for many years. In a similar way that if you buy Boots paracetamol, it's a generic copy of Panadol or Headaches. So it's essentially the same product, but it has a different brand, and generally speaking that makes it a bit more affordable in the marketplace. So Beaphar Worm Clear is a generic product of a vet wormer that's been on the market for many years. So no, it's not just marketing. We have to prove that it is equivalent to that product in order to get the license in the first place. So you can be absolutely sure that the product does exactly what it says on the label. It is as effective and as safe to use as the products that you've been buying from the vet. So that's what that story is all about. It doesn't matter whether a wormer is sold through the veterinary channel or through the pet shop channel or even from a supermarket or online. If it is a medicine and it has an authorization number on the packaging, then you know for sure that that product is safe and that it does what it says on the packet.
Exactly.
Okay, one last question, Georgie?
Yes, this one has actually been fed to me from our customer services team. It's a question that we sometimes occur. I'm concerned that I've overdosed my cat or my dog, and what should I do? The biggest thing is do not panic. Just try and keep calm. All of our products, and especially Beaphar Worm Clear, has really good overdose studies. So the likelihood is that your cat or dog will be absolutely fine. It may possibly end up with slight little bit of vomiting or diarrhea, but the best thing to do is to remain calm and give us a call, and then we can advise you on the best course of action, and whether that be to not worry or to potentially take them to the vets to get them assessed. The likelihood is they will be okay. I don't think I've got anything else to add on that point. Have you?
No, I think that's good advice.
Wonderful.
Yeah. Okay, I think that's all we have time for today. Thank you very much indeed for everybody for watching. Thank you for sending us your questions in. If we haven't been able to answer your questions today, then we'll very, very happily answer them online during the course of tomorrow. Make sure that we've covered off everybody's queries. If anything else has occurred to you while we've been talking today, please do send it in via Facebook, via the website, or call our customer services team, who be happy to talk to you about any aspect of the health of your pets or our products. So thank you very much once again, and goodbye for now.
Thank you.